Hi, I'm Carol Ann Ford. I played Susan in Doctor Who. And I've been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, and it's absolutely amazing. So, goodbye everybody, and it's been fun talking to you.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 267 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. I do believe you're appealing to my better nature, and we both know I don't have one. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like I do every week. We'll go on the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem.
This is Chrissy in Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Happy March.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully everybody enjoyed their extra day in February there.
I got laundry done.
Yeah. That's always a good thing.
Yes.
Clean socks and underwear, always a plus.
Has to be done at some point.
Mm-hmm.
But I did.
Yep.
I saw all these posts on Facebook saying, "Oh, you all have an extra day. What are you doing with it?" I'm like, laundry.
Yeah.
It's exciting, but
It worked for me.
Yeah. I ran some errands. So.
Guys,
It was just Saturday. So
yeah. It was fun reading posts about the people who were born on February 29th. So it's only, despite being ages old,
Mm-hmm.
it's only one was
well, my uncle's birthday is February 29th. He's in his 70s now.
mm-hmm.
This is only his 20th birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, there was an article that Ryan Reynolds gave this lady who I guess is in her 70s, 80s, her first legal bill because she turned 21 on February 29th.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, that's always the joke.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're the type of people who can be like, I retired at 21. And
Wait, what?
And people are like, what?
Yep.
No.
Yeah, no, somebody, yeah, like I said, to me, it was a Saturday, but I had someone tell me that their phone completely freaked out on the 29th.
Okay.
for some reason. I'm like, well, that's mine didn't have a problem with it, but
I didn't either.
yeah, I guess that's bound to happen every now and then. So
Yeah. It's just one of those things that you're like, oh yeah, February 29th, that's a thing. We don't normally have to deal with it, but
Yeah.
I say deal with it like it's something to deal with. It's like,
yeah. Well,
it's
it's
just
just, from here on out, if you're like, oh, well, this fell on this day of the week last year, it's like, now you got to bump it over 2 days.
Yeah, you gotta add a day in there until next February anyway.
Yeah. And then we change our clocks this weekend.
Yay!
Although I'm hoping they introduced a bill in the state legislature here to just have this be the last one, and I'm like, please, can we just not be doing the switching back and forth anymore?
Yeah. Say, can you have someone amend that so it applies to the entire country?
Right?
Right? I'm like, I've had people say, I don't care who's running for president. If they say I'm going to get rid of daylight savings time, that person would win.
Right?
Because that is one thing everyone can agree on. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Everyone hates the time change.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still remember the great idea I had when I moved to New Mexico. I moved 2 days before fall back. So now that I do the whole 2-hour time zone change, I had to deal with the hour back time. Saving time.
You're just a regular time traveler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least you were going west and not east, because then
Yes.
you actually gained time.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's always so much easier.
Anyway, well, so yeah, move your clocks ahead, or if you just use your computer, have the internet do it for you.
Yes.
I was gonna say
Like,
most
most people, your cell phones will automatically change.
Mm-hmm.
Your
You might have to
computers
change
will
your
automatically change.
Might have to change your microwave in your car if you
Yeah.
know how to do it, or just wait till it changes back.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, it'd be like me whose phone car clock hasn't walked in like 2 years.
Yeah.
Well, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
They say
knowing
stop
what
clock is right twice a day.
It's true.
Oh, all right. Well, let's do the news. So first up is an interesting piece of news, which if you've kept your pulse on what's going on with Disney, then you knew this was coming eventually. I think it was more just the abrupt announcement of it that threw people for a loop.
Yeah,
So,
the whole you have to double check. Like, is this legit? Am I being scammed? What's going on?
yeah,
But
yeah,
no, it is true. It did happen.
Yeah. So
Multiple
Bob
sources.
Iger, who has been CEO of the Walt Disney Company, I believe since Eisner left.
That seems right. Yeah.
I think we've known that he's been planning to retire in the nearer future. And last time he renewed his contract with the company, it was supposed to be through the end of 2021. And it just seemed like maybe he would retire after that. But he actually announced that he is going to step down to CEO immediately and not wait. Now, this does not mean he's leaving. He is just now no longer CEO of the Walt Disney Company. He is going to be executive chairman and will still be in charge of the company's creative endeavors through the end of his contract, so the end of 2021. And then Bob Chapek has taken over. We got one Bob for another Bob.
And make sure you have all your bobs straight.
Yeah. So Iger's explanation essentially was that since they got the Fox deal squared away and Disney Plus is launched, that he feels like it's just a good time for him to step away from that CEO role, which, those were kind of the two big, deal business related things. Obviously there's stuff going on in the parks, but big business stuff, that Fox acquisition and launching Disney Plus, the streaming service, were kind of the two big projects. And now that those are completed, he can actually take the time between now and the end of next year to help transition completely, so that once his contract is out and he's gone all the way, that it'll be a smoother transition. So, but I mean, the timing of it seems a little, but I knew it was coming. Although, like I said, those of us that really pay attention to everything that Disney does, we knew it was going to happen eventually. So
yeah. So yeah, Not sure what it'll mean in the long term, or do you have any insight on that, Rachel?
I mean,
It's just one guy leaves, one guy takes over, and
yeah, that's
things
essentially it.
Things
So,
continue. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Iger is obviously leaving behind a huge legacy because he's the guy who did the Marvel acquisition into Disney, and then Lucasfilm. Those are both his, these major expansions that have been going on at the parks, with New Fantasyland, Galaxy's Edge, a lot of new hotels, and there's 3 more cruise ships coming in the future. So, the company has been growing and has grown a ton under Bob Iger's tenure as CEO. So, it'll be interesting what Bob Chapek decides to do as CEO. So, whether they'll buy anything else, if they even can buy anything else.
I know, it's like, what's left?
Really?
Yeah. Like, if they really buy much of anything else, they're getting into monopoly territory, and that's usually not allowed. So,
and it's just not a good idea in general.
Yeah. But, but Chapek's coming into a lot of toys to play with. There's a lot of toys in this toy box. So.
Right.
Yeah. So. That's a thing that's happening still. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah, although some people had fun with, if you hang out in any of the, because I don't know how mainstream this went, but definitely in the Disney communities, like Iger made that announcement last Tuesday during a shareholder meeting, and then it was Thursday or Friday, sometime later last week, that there was an incident at the Jungle Cruise in Walt Disney World. And one of the boats got off the track and sunk.
Oops.
Yeah.
It was like Bob Chapek has been CEO for like 3 days, and the company is literally sinking.
It's already falling apart.
Yeah. We laugh because nobody got hurt. So
yes, so that is
laugh because it wasn't that serious. Nobody got seriously hurt, just waterlogged. So I'm thinking Disney bought new shoes for a boat full of people.
Probably. So. Well, that's a thing.
Yes. So moving on, Humble Bundle, who we've not talked about in a while, but we've talked about them previously in the past. They have actually a handful of different bundle themes that you could give money to, but at the moment they specifically have a Doctor Who Humble Bundle going, and it's a collection of comics and audiobooks / Big Finish stories.
Yep. I've already put in my Humble Bundle money and filled in a big hole in my comic collection, that's for sure. And even if there were even a few Big Finish audios that were there that I did not have, so I was like, sweet. So those are. And
for those not familiar with Humble Bundle, is they have tiers, and depending on how much you donate will determine how much you get. So the more you donate, the more you get. But like, you could get like everything for like $15 or something like that.
That's I did $15, and like the one of the
$15 is like a Big Finish audio.
Well, one of them was like one of those big box sets that usually goes for like $25-$30.
Yeah.
So I spent half that, got got that audio, got all the comics and a few other audios I didn't have in my collection, and I was like, dude, that was so worth it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the money goes to a good need,
Yeah.
good cause. In this case, every Humble Bundle, they pick a charity that the money goes to. In this case, since it's Doctor Who, it's going to children in need.
Yep. So, there are that's a good one to support. So, you know what? Great.
They even say in the thing, it says $648 worth of awesome stuff. And the most expensive thing is $15. Talk about a deal.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yeah, that Humble Bundle thing, if you can, and they come out with good ones pretty often. So keep an eye on that.
I have bought quite a few things through Humble Bundle.
Yeah. And as we're recording this, you have like 2 weeks and change to get in on that. So
yeah. So if you're waiting on payday because things are a little tight, you got time.
Yep. And then jumping back to Disney, I believe this is something, they had this exhibit at D23 last year, so that's why I recognize some of it. But if you saw some of the pictures and video from D23 last year, that they had this big costume exhibit. That exhibit, the art of the Disney costume, is actually going to be available to the public if you can get to Seattle starting this October. So the Museum of Pop Culture, which is in Seattle, will have that exhibit starting this October. So it's Heroes and Villains, the art of the Disney costume. It features more than 70 original items from the world of Disney, including ball gowns, sorcerers' capes, military uniforms, tiaras, glass slippers, and much more. So that will be cool. It looks really cool from what I saw from people who went to D23. So
definitely sounds cool.
Awesome. Yeah. And hopefully
it travels.
Maybe. Hopefully this will take and do the same thing that the Marvel superhero exhibit that started in Seattle.
I was going to say,
at that same museum, like 3 years ago now. That it'll travel, because for those that maybe have not been paying attention, speaking of which, the Marvel superhero exhibit, it was at the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, and then it was in Philadelphia last year, which Chauncey and I went to, which was really, really, really cool, because it is it's a really good exhibit. But it is getting ready to open at the Henry Ford Museum in Detroit, and it will be there for the next several months. And then it's actually moving to the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago. So if you can get to either Detroit or Chicago, depending on the time of year, you can have the opportunity to see that exhibit. And I'm going to have to go to one or the other, because I really want to go through that exhibit again. It's so good. Wear my Eye of Agamotto. Be like, this is mine. So, but I'm going to assume that the Disney one will be just as good as the Marvel one, and in that case, if you can get a chance to see it, it's so good. They do a really good job of displaying their stuff so that you can just drool all over it. And if you're a costumer or cosplayer, take lots and lots of reference pictures. Like I did with Doctor Strange. Thank you very much. So. Yep. So. That's exciting, but I hope it moves on like the Marvel one did. Like they can just kind of follow each other.
It's like, hey, we've already got this the route mapped out, so no big deal.
I will
Right.
be there with bells on. So that is that it really for the news. We are in a new month, though.
Yep. We do have a new book for the Goodreads Book Club, and that is Infinity Doctors. There was a tie, so I coin flipped Infinity Doctors 1, and then for the month of April, it will be The Endless Child, which will be the 13th Doctor and 8th story. So then a new poll will be going up in April for May's book. So it looks like Infinity Doctors is a good coin flip from what I was reading of the synopsis and what happened with this current season of Doctor Who.
Oh.
So it's just like, ooh, yay! Serendipity, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Some.
Possibly. All right. And move on to the feedback. So I got some feedback from Shalane. She said, speaking of Stranger Things, because we got that nice Valentine from Netflix, that she wonders what pop culture / movies we'll have in the next season of Stranger Things, because we had Star Wars and D&D in season 1, we had Ghostbusters in season 2, we had Back to the Future in season 3, and she's like, well, season 4 is supposedly going to be set in 1986, so we could have things like Labyrinth, Ferris Bueller, Aliens. I mean, I think they'll probably tend to stick with things that are still kind of, I mean, they're becoming teenagers, but still like that kid teenager appropriate. So I don't know if like Aliens would necessarily be appropriate, but
Well,
you
it
never
might.
know. It is possible. And how they tie that in with, you know, Hopper being in Russia, at least for part of it. So
Yeah.
Might have to look up what James Bond movies were coming out then.
yeah, really. James Bond in the late 80s ties to Russia.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's the only tie-in I can think of off the top of my head.
And then are talking about video game movies, Shalane, and video games in general. Shalane says she remembers watching the Sonic cartoon at one point, and she says that she thinks that they should reboot. Someone should try to reboot the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Where are we? I got a feeling we're not in Brooklyn no more.
They're brothers. They're plumbers.
Oh no. Mario! Luigi!
They're on the trail of a kidnapped princess and a mystical meteorite.
It's incredible!
That gives anyone who possesses it the power to rule the universe.
Get me the rock! Come and get it, lizard breath!
Now, they must rescue the princess.
Alien species escaping.
And make it safely back.
Later, alligator.
To our world.
Are you alright?
Before time runs out.
Save him! Get him! Yes! No, stop! Gotcha! No, not again!
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
You know, let's get a couple more good video game movies under our belt, and then go for the for the white. Just, I mean, we've had there's been a few successes, true, and we're very happy about that. let's make this a thing before anyone thinks about touching that, because I don't think anyone wants to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. There's probably
Unfortunately,
some weirdo out there that's like has had ideas for it.
like,
So
hey, we can make this work.
yeah.
And you know what? I bet you someone could pull it off, but
Yeah.
is a studio going to give them money for it? Probably not.
Yeah.
You'd have to make quite the argument that,
Well, and
beyond, hey, it can't be worse than the version we already got with Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. So
that's the thing, is like, it's not just the studio, even it would be Nintendo having to sign off on it, and Nintendo has basically said, no.
Yeah.
And they have ever since that movie came out.
Yeah.
Don't blame them, really.
No, I don't blame them at all.
Yeah. It's bad.
It's just like, in order for us to say yes, you have to have everything completely storyboarded, quasi-computer animated.
Yeah.
Talk.
Yeah. Some funding in place, good casting.
An actual script.
Yes.
Because, they didn't really have anything back then.
Yeah.
I mean, at the time when I saw it, I was like 7, and I was like, yay, Mario Brothers movie. And it's like, now that I'm older, I'm like, this.
Yeah.
Like today, the Artemis Fowl trailer came out, and I'm like, okay, do you guys understand what the meaning of adaptation is?
Yeah.
Because that ain't it.
Yeah.
Did you read the same version of the book that I did?
Yeah, like, I know it's been a few years since I read that book, but I'm pretty sure this isn't what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just in general, adapting like video games and other games into movies has not really gone over that well.
Yeah.
So, the Super Mario Brothers was bad. The Super Mario Brothers is like bad, not like bad, but you can watch it like 20 years later through the lens of this is bad but entertaining, like some of the others. Because they've done movies for like Mortal Kombat, and that's one of those ones where it's like you can watch it and it's like, this is bad, but it's bad in an entertaining
so bad that
way.
it's good. Yeah.
The Mario Brothers is kind of like the bar for you just video games adapted into movies. Stick with the cartoon. The Mario Brothers cartoon show, that I remember being entertaining as a kid.
Yeah. So, I mean, would it be nice for them to give it another shot? Sure. Do I think it's going to happen? Not in my lifetime.
Yeah, it may in our lifetime.
Well,
give it more time.
Yeah.
Unless they get the people who did Detective Pikachu.
Yeah,
really.
Yep.
Yeah. Nintendo knows where their bread is buttered, and it's with the Pokemon, so.
Yep.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, Shalane, for the feedback.
Yes, indeed.
So let's move on to this week's main topic, which is season 12 of Doctor Who. So Jodie Whittaker and Kristen Ball's second season as Doctor and showrunner, respectively. Obviously, we already discussed ad nauseum the two-parter Spyfall already, so you can go back and listen to that episode, but we will not rehash that. But we still have 8 other episodes to talk about. I think we should go through this probably episode by episode, just because I think for some we'll have not a lot to talk about, and for others we'll have a lot to talk about. But because there is that thread It probably makes more sense to talk about how we saw things play out in order. So after we got our two-parter season opener, we get the next episode, Orphan 55, which sees the Doctor and the fam go to supposed to be a holiday spa. And being at Doctor Who, it becomes, everything goes pear-shaped, and essentially we get base under siege.
I was gonna say, I'm
spa
never
under
to,
siege.
Anytime the Doctor goes to a resort, it's never a good time.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, Midnight Pleasure, was it Pleasure Hive?
I can't remember.
It's
I
a leisure hive, right?
Leisure Hive, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Leisure Hive.
Well,
The leisure hive.
there was
Paradise Towers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although in Midnight, Donna had a good time because she stayed behind.
Yeah, I was gonna say at the spa
Yeah.
in Midnight was actually the better place to be.
Yeah. Donna was the smart one in that whole movie.
Yeah.
True.
So, I mean, of the season, this is probably, I hate to label things as best and worst, but this is probably the worst of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cookie cutter. They did some things storyline wise, and I'm like, did you really need to do that? Like the whole subplot with like this girl who at first seems to have some like chemistry with Ryan, and it turns out that she wants to blow the spa up because her mom left her as a baby. Like, did we really need that? Plot point.
I think we call that disproportionate retribution.
Yeah.
I remember thinking, can you imagine if every kid that one of the parents walked out did something like that?
Ugh.
Yeah.
There's a trope for that. It's called unfortunate implications.
Yeah. It's like, I just call it unnecessary plot.
Well, that too.
Just like you could have, you had a thing, you had your art, and you took it one step too far. It's like you had a good outfit, and then you added the lime green hat, and that was just too much. Take a step back. Because like the whole base under siege, I mean that's a common thing in Doctor Who. Our group, our Doctor companions, they're in a place that they can't, they've been separated from the TARDIS for whatever reason, so they can't escape. Something is happening. People are dying. They must figure it out and must stop it before anybody else dies. And at the end, Bob's your uncle. Any survivors get to go off, and they go back to the TARDIS and move on. But they had to throw this whole mother-daughter strained relationship terrorist thing. And then, on top of that, throw on the fact that Orphan 55 apparently is a designation given to, by some organization, given to planets that have, I guess, completely been destroyed and are considered uninhabitable anymore or something. And Orphan 55 just so happens to be Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've seen this movie before, and I didn't like it then.
Yeah, it's called The Mysterious Planet.
Yes.
Well, I suppose there is 1 billion to 1 chance there was a place called Marble Arch on Ravalox.
And they wrote in English?
Well, that's another 1 billion to 1 chance. It does begin to seem a little unlikely, doesn't it?
Well, Doctor, we're on Earth, aren't we? I said it felt like Earth.
It's in the wrong part of space for it to be your planet. Besides, according to all the records, this is Ravalox.
Well, and how do you explain this?
Well, they... can't. Not yet. Unless, of course, perhaps they collected railway stations.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Well, not impossible, though. Not as impossible as the other explanation.
What's that?
Well, there's somehow or other your planet and its entire constellation managed to shift itself a couple of light years across space, after which, for some reason, it became known as Ravalox.
Well, what time are we in?
Long time after your period. 2 million years or more.
Well, so what happened to London?
Wiped out? Well, if this was London.
Doctor, I know it is. I can feel it.
Now, don't get emotional.
Don't get emotional. This cinder we're standing on is all that's left of my world. Everything I knew.
Like, wait a minute. My doctor already did this with Perry. Except to call it, instead of Orphan 55, they call it a Ravalox.
Yeah.
Which makes you wonder how this fits into the timeline of Earth getting moved by the Time Lord. If you've seen the Trial of Time Lord, you'll completely understand this. In that, the Time Lords take Earth, move it, and then rename it.
That's what I remember the gist of it being.
Right. So it's like, how does them doing that fit into the timeline of Earth? Also, presumably being where it does belong, but the Doctor not realizing it, and then calling it Orphan 55.
This is how it works. You stick your fingers in your ears and go la 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 la. Not listening.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. Well, as we will learn as we get towards the end of the season, the Time Lords like to really F things up for reasons. Yes. So
they don't care who they do it to and how many times.
Yeah. It's like really at the end of the day, it's like if the Time Lords are involved, you just kind of wave your hand and go, Time Lords. And that's your explanation.
Well, and then too, I kind of got something, but I'll wait till Fugitive of Jodie with Jack and his former job. Okay, I'm just putting it out there now.
Gotta do the next one first.
Yeah,
which was much better than Orphan 55, and I was actually looking forward to this one all the way from when we got that first season trailer, because I'm like, that guy looks like Nikola Tesla. We're getting a Nikola Tesla story, and then we got a Nikola Tesla story.
And for those of us who are timeless fans, it just even made us more bitter that show got taken off the air.
Yeah.
Like there was no tomorrow.
Yeah,
in a good way.
Yeah. So we got Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Which early 20th century New York City, Nikola Tesla is having his rivalry with Thomas Edison. However, this being Doctor Who, aliens have to get involved. I liked this one, but I fascinated with the whole. I saw the current war over Christmas break, which is Edison, Tesla, and crap. Now I can't think of it, because there's a lot of people think of Edison and Tesla when they think of the early days of electricity, but some people don't realize there's actually a third guy whose name I'm absolutely blanking on now. Hold on, let me go to the Google.
Google.
Westinghouse. There we go. George Westinghouse. Because I did not realize that there was a third guy involved in this whole battle for electricity, actually, until we went to Pittsburgh last year, and then we went to the museum, the Heinz Museum, and they had like a bit talking about Westinghouse, and like, who's this guy? And Chauncey was explaining it to me, and I'm like, Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was just Edison Tesla. So, but they leave Westinghouse out of this probably because it would be confusing. And really, at this point, it's Edison and Tesla are in the same. They're both in New York City at the same time. So, and if you've seen the current war, then you know that Tesla actually worked for Edison at one point, did really good work, and then Edison refused to pay him what he had promised to pay him for said work, and therefore Tesla went off on his own, and this is where we find him. I mean, the whole bit with the aliens, these scorpions, which may or may not be related to the whatcha-diggets from The Runaway Bride. I'm having an absolute brain fart. The Sycorax. No, not the Sycorax. That's the Christmas Invasion.
I know. I was going to say Sycorax too, and I was like, no.
I was thinking of the Sycorax the other day when it was snowing.
Rachnos. That's it.
Yes.
Rachnos.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yes.
Yep.
The Rachnos. The Sycorax on the brain when it was snowing the other day. I'm like, I hope this is actual snow and not Sycorax ash. Yeah, the Rachnos. So, yeah, having this subplot with these scorpion beings who are really just they're there because they need their ship fixed, and they think that Tesla, being one of the smartest people in that time period, could somehow fix their ship with technology that he's not familiar with. But I did enjoy. I like the bits with Tesla and the Doctor when they start talking like they're the two smartest people in the room.
I think it's been repurposed, but I can't work out what it's doing instead. This is all wrong. Something this elegant should be giving off this kind of noise. Its energy readings are off the charts.
But that instrument detects energy. Is it your own design?
I made it, mainly out of spoons.
You're an inventor.
I have my moments.
I knew it. So you can understand how it feels. You know, when you have an idea and to make it real, I don't think there's any greater thrill.
I couldn't agree more.
You spoke of aliens. People here would laugh at the very idea.
But not you.
Well, apparently I'm not like other people. It can be difficult, you know, to feel no one else sees the world the way you do. It's like you're,
out of place.
Yeah. I thought things would be different. You know, when I first arrived in America, I had 4 cents to my name. I was robbed at the journey. But still, I thought, this is the beginning. Here I would prosper. My ideas would live.
Changing the world takes time. You have to be patient.
I try, but you saw them outside. They talk as if I was dangerous or mad.
So prove them wrong.
Got different technology and stuff. So, and I like the casting in this one too, for those that probably may or may not have recognized Goran Biznik, who played Luka Kovac on ER way back in the day.
Yep.
And it just so happens he is of the same like lineage as Tesla. They both are of Croatian descent. So it's like he looked the part, but he sounded the part too, because he's from the same region as where Tesla was originally from. So, and then the queen of the Scorpion people, the Skithra, was Anjali Mohindra, who played Ronnie on the Sarah Jane Adventures. Yep. So there's several people that have previous ties to Doctor Who. The Harold Green, the character played by Paul Casey, at this episode was actually his 37th appearance in Doctor Who, but he's played a lot of like rubber mask characters. Like he played Ood Sigma, he's played a Zygon, he's played one of the Whispermen, he's played Cyber Leader. So he's kind of one of those character actors that Doctor Who uses apparently a lot. And then Robert Glenister, who played Edison, played Major Salentinen in the Caves of Adrazzani.
Oh, Salatine, yeah.
Salatine. I can't read my own handwriting. I think I misspelled it, and then I tried to write over it, and I can't see what I tried to write over it. So. I'm like, there's an S and there's some E's, but I think there may be an N. So
you're like Milan.
Yeah. So he's been in Doctor Who before in Caves of Adrazzani. So, and actually he was in a TV movie with Karen Gillan in 2012. The UK, 12 actors. What can I say?
Yep.
So that was a good one. I like that one.
I did too.
Yeah. So, but then we get to the halfway point of the season.
Yeah.
With Fugitive of the Judoon, which I'm still trying to get caught up on listening to Traveling the Vortex. And I just finished listening to the review of Nikola Tesla's Eye, so I haven't heard the review of this one yet. But in the Tesla one, and I think it's Glenn says something about that silly Judoon episode we're getting next week. I'm like, you guys have no idea. None of us had any idea. It's like, oh, yay, the Judoon. You know, it's like, yay, Rhinoceros Space Police. This will be fun. You know, the way they speak is funny, and you know, maybe the Doctor will come up with some rhyming thing. In this case, it's a platoon of Judoon near a lagoon, and you know, we thought that would be pretty straightforward. The Judoon doing what they do. They're space police. They're on the hunt for a fugitive, just like they were in Smith and Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the Doctor is gonna, you know, do what the Doctor does to make sure that a minimum number of people get hurt, because the Judoon are very single-minded in their pursuit. So
they don't care who they hurt, just as long as they get the end goal.
Yeah, exactly. So we get, you know, it seems pretty straightforward at first. You know, we get our characters of the week. We get this woman, Ruth, and her husband, and it's her birthday, and apparently she does tours of the area for tourists, and apparently the guy at the coffee shop that she regularly goes to is madly in love with her. But it's like the Judoon show up, they're on the hunt for someone. It's like, okay, is it the guy at the coffee shop? Is it Ruth? Is it her husband? Who could it be? And
who's in a suit? Who's had their memory wiped?
Exactly. But then as the gang is, you know, doing their investigating, Graham disappears. And I thought maybe the Judoon had taken him at first.
Yeah.
You know, and at first they don't even realize that Graham disappeared. But Graham disappears and then reappears on this spaceship. And again, I thought maybe it was the Judoon spaceship. And you know, he's confused. I'm confused. We're all confused. And then there's this disembodied voice telling Graham not to move, because if he moves, he'll set off the security system and he'll be ripped to shreds or whatever. And
this is like, I know that voice.
Well, I did not catch it at first. Rewatching it, I'm totally like, how did I not see that or recognize that at the very first bit?
Spoiled.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get spoiled on that. So
Neither did I. I made sure I
thankfully,
stayed off.
I didn't get spoiled, so I did not know. I absolutely did not know. So, when the security system or whatever finally gets shut off and the disembodied voice is like, okay, I'm going to come, because Graham's like, who are you, disembodied voice? And the person's like, oh, I'm coming to see you now. How, there were small earthquakes or something, glass did not break from, I'm sure, presumably the screaming, high-pitched squeeing that probably came out of millions of fans' mouths when, after a decade, we get the return of Captain Jack Harkness.
Yes.
Don't move. Seriously, not a muscle. Working on the movement sensors. If you even flinch, it'll set off the laser spikes. Trust me, they get everywhere. By the way, looking good.
Who is this? What's going on? Where am I? Where are you?
Neutralized. Coming to join you. You can get excited now.
You miss me, right?
Have we met?
Still cheeky. Regeneration can change that. Gotta say, loving the gray at the temple. Kind of distinguished, yet still sexy. Oh, come here. How you been, Doctor?
And the way he enters, Graham doesn't know what to think. Because
Jack knows exactly what to think. Jack just does what Jack does and plants a big old wet one on Graham.
Thinking that Graham is the doctor. It's like, oh boy, Jack here going to be in for a surprise.
Yeah. Well, and then Graham says something when he's like, I'm not the doctor. And Jack's all like, says something about needing to find him or something. And Graham's like, actually her. And Jack's all like, oh, I've got to say it.
Yeah.
And that's the exact response we want from Jack Harkness. Thank you very much.
Yes.
So, oh my goodness. And then he does the same thing, kind of, almost the exact same thing because he's trying to get the doctor, teleport the doctor, and he keeps getting people in vicinity of the doctor. So first it gets Graham, then it gets Ryan and Yaz, and at this point he knows that the doctor's not female, so he thinks Yaz is the doctor. Mm-hmm. This whole, mistaken identity thing. And unfortunately, Jack and the doctor never see each other face to face in this episode, but it'll make for, the anticipation now that, we know Jack is out there. Jack knows that the doctor is female. The doctor knows that Jack is out there looking for her. So it's like, once we get that face to face reunion, it's going to be so good. Yes.
And before Jack makes his exit, he gives the group a warning to give to the doctor, beware of the lone Cybermen. And here's where my little thing was. Did Jack get information from the Timelords, or with his time in whatever time agency he was in, he got that information? And is now trying to, so that was one of my questions kind of when watching last night's episode and kind of thinking back to this one. It's like, hopefully this will get answered.
Yeah. You don't know, because, well, I mean, we'll get to this when we get to the last episode, but yeah, how Jack actually factors into this is still unknown. And what Jack has, been doing, what he is doing, what he will be doing, because we have not seen Jack literally since the end of time.
Yeah, that is true.
So, at least in Doctor Who. So, obviously, we got Big Finish now, but that's its own thing.
Well, and there was some Torchwood in there.
Yeah.
Running concurrently. Some.
Yeah.
But this Captain Jack is our Captain Jack from Series 1, not the Torchwood Captain Jack.
Yeah.
There's two different sides.
Yeah.
This Jack is happy-go-lucky. The other one's gloom, doom, trying to make a go at it.
Yeah.
Well, I was talking more about like fan, from the fan perspective. Yes, we've seen. Anyway, never mind. Going down a tangent that head down a rabbit hole that did not need to be head down. But anyway, I was being pedantic.
Yeah. This is one of many rabbit holes.
Yes.
In the grand scheme of things, it's like this is not the deepest rabbit hole at the moment.
True. Yeah.
So all we know is there's this group called the Alliance, which we've actually heard before. They were mentioned in the Pandora Opens, which has still been a long time ago. So the companions get separated from the Doctor for a chunk because they're stuck with Jack. So the Doctor's kind of on her own with the Jodoo and Ruth and her husband. Ruth's husband ends up he tries to pretend he's the fugitive and ends up being executed because that's what the Jodoo do. End up with the Jodoo end up confronting the Doctor and Ruth, and we find out that Ruth is actually supposedly who the Jodoo are looking for, but we still don't know why exactly. And so they managed to get on the run, go to this lighthouse that apparently Ruth's parents lived in when she was a kid, but when they passed, she moved away, and met her husband and all that. And we get there, and all she knows is she's got this text message her husband sent her before he died saying, "Break the glass." So we get to the lighthouse. The Doctor gets curious about a single grave out in the yard. Meanwhile, Ruth is inside the lighthouse. She sees this glass, like one of those break for emergency type things, I think. And Bob's your uncle. Ruth's the Doctor.
Yeah.
That's the only way. She was Chameleon Arch, and in the grave is the TARDIS, like our TARDIS, like the blue police box TARDIS.
You're probably a bit confused right now. I broke the glass. It's all come back to me.
What is this?
That's my ship.
What?
Let me take it from the top. Hello, I'm the Doctor. I'm a traveler in space and time. And that thing buried down there is called a TARDIS. Time and relative dimension in space. You're gonna love this.
and we all collectively go, "What?"
Yeah.
And our
Mhm.
best David
Right.
Tennant's 10th Doctor. What?
What? What? What? What?
Mhm.
It's like they already have like blown our minds bringing back Jack. And it's like, okay, the bomb dropped. Thank you. Surprise. Yay. And then they go and drop this bombshell that there is an incarnation of the Doctor that we don't know about.
Yep.
Because Jodie Whittaker's Doctor doesn't recognize Ruth. And Ruth's Doctor doesn't recognize Jodie.
It's just like, okay, where'd you come from? How does this all fit?
Yep.
What kind of shenanigans are going on here? Who do I believe? Who don't I believe?
I almost wonder if maybe John Barrowman didn't share on social media after it aired in the UK, just so maybe that would take off so that this bombshell would not get too far on social media and potentially spoil people on that.
That could be.
Because I know that was a complaint, because I saw people complain that they got spoiled on Jack's return because John Barrowman was tweeting about it and sharing it on social media after it already aired in the UK and had not aired here in the US. But I did not see that until after I watched it, so I learned about it after the fact.
Same here.
But I could almost see, at the time I was like, well, people can get spoiled if certain actors, certain people involved in the production wouldn't share things. It was like, surely John would know. This is not his first go-around on Doctor Who. It's like, it airs in the UK 5 hours before it starts airing in the US, in the most eastern time zones in the US. There's a 5-hour difference. But now, all these weeks later, I almost wonder if John didn't do that so that would be, if people were going to get spoiled on something, have him spoil on the thing that's like the lesser of the two bombshells.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. But, considering he was supposedly went through all the jumping through these hoops when he had to film it, like, because he had to go to Cardiff and he's not been in Cardiff in ages.
And having to fake a remodel of his apartment there and actually going through the whole remodel.
He had to go through, he had to like buy an apartment and actually go through getting remodeled so he could justify being in Cardiff. Although I wonder, like, that would possibly work to him justify why he's in Cardiff. But what about the hair? Because usually if he's not filming, he lets his natural gray show, and then he'll dye it for like Arrow and things like that. So I wonder how he was able to justify the hair.
Well, I think he also is working too with like the Dancing on Ice competition too, as well over in the UK. So maybe that is that too. So maybe he went back to the dyed hair instead of natural hair color.
Maybe.
Possible. I don't. Just spitballing.
It's a lot of justification to keep a secret, and then you let it loose.
Yeah. It actually is, especially considering if you follow the Doctor Who YouTube channel, on top of them sharing things like, clips from episodes and trailers, and like the trailers for like the Blu-ray box sets and all that fun stuff, and clips from Classic Who. Throughout the season, they've been doing like this competition between Jodie, Mandip, I can't think of the other. Tosin.
I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah. And God, my brain is not working today.
Bradley Walsh.
Bradley Walsh. There we go. It's like, yeah, him. They've been doing like this competition, so they've been doing things like answering questions and like just it's funny like little competitions to see like of who of them is like the best of the cast or whatever. And I presumably they filmed these over the course of while they were filming the series, and they just spread out putting them on the YouTube channel. So these were probably filmed ages ago, back when they were doing filming anyway. So they're all together on set. They can do these things in between breaks and stuff like that. But the finale of the competition was just put up semi-recently on the YouTube channel, and it's Jodie and Mandip doing a marshmallow eating competition. And like there's a whole bunch of the crew, like Chris Chibnall and all these people are watching him, and they're cheering for who they want to win. And you can only catch him in like it's like a second, maybe 2 seconds on camera, but you can distinctly hear John Barrowman's voice screaming and cheering on Jodie.
Tosin Cole is the time in 1.5 minutes. Are you ready?
Ready?
Are you steady?
Go on, Mandip. All right, ready?
Go!
What, Jodie?
Keep count this side.
I need to hear.
She's giving. Jodie, drink water. Come on,
So it's so funny to see the comments, and people are like, okay, John, you're gonna have to do everything. We're gonna do everything in our power to keep the secret that you're returning. And he's like, okay. John, 5 minutes later, marshmallow eating competition, John screaming as loud as he can. And appearing on camera in Jack's outfit.
It's like, we're gonna have to save that one for the end.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we're not gonna be able to put this up on YouTube for forever.
Yeah, you had one job.
Yep.
It's like, why didn't you just go to your apartment and look over the remodels?
Yeah. Go talk to your husband. So we get halfway through the season, and they've just taken everything that we know and think we know about Doctor Who and just be like, all over the place, and we're just left to like, okay, how's this gonna work? And we still have half a season to go.
And just by the time we think we had it figured out,
just when we start getting comfortable, they go and pull the rug out from under us. But then we go back kind of to the status quo with Praxius, which is this. It's not base under siege. It's like it's like parasites or disease or some infection gone wild, I guess, which is still kind of status quo for Doctor Who too, actually. Like, there's something out there infecting people.
And with the plastics, is it just like, is it the autons? Is it the nesting consciousness?
Yeah.
Is it something brand new?
Yeah. It's like killer plastic. We've seen this before. But this does
bubble wrap coming back to prevent
it's Kerblam. It's gotten smarter. Yeah. I know between Orphan 55 and Praxeus that which I think of the two, Praxeus is a slightly better story. It's not the best, but it's a slightly better story than Orphan 55. But I know some people have had issues with both of these because they come off very preachy as far as the moral to the story, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Orphan 55 this is what's going to happen to Earth if you continue down the path you're going with, pollution and nuclear war and all that stuff. And then Praxeus is essentially, we've got so much plastic trash on the planet that eventually it's going to turn around and literally kill you. Please recycle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, Doctor Who's always kind of put in their morals.
I think it's the heavy-handedness that people.
Yeah,
it's like
you're more. Let's spell it out for you.
Yeah, you have a message first, and then maybe if we have time later, we'll do something fun with aliens and time travel and Time Lords and whatever. Yeah. So it's like people don't really like being smacked with that kind of thing.
Yeah. People don't like being preached to.
Yes. It's like, I don't care what you're preaching, if you're preaching politics or religion or anything. If you have a message, sure, but be a little more subtle about it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of,
I don't know if I don't know
that subtlety is quite Chibnall and Company's strong suit. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So
that may be a combination of
2x4. Here we go. You didn't get it first time, you will now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so like, you mentioned the Autons and Estine consciousness, that kind of stuff. Like, there was some of that message in there, even back in the 70s when they first had the Autons, but it wasn't like, it's like, here, let me smack you over the head with it all the freaking time. There was still kind of some fun to it.
Mm-hmm.
To it, like, the Master being his charming, suave self because it's Roger Delgado and unit shenanigans and all these other things. It's like there was still an element of fun to it, and I think that might be the complaint there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, Doctor Who has always put messages and stuff in there, the best ones, but there was still an element of enjoyability to it.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't know if that's.
I don't know.
Just the way Chibnall does things, or maybe at this point they're like, okay, well, we've been trying to tell these sorts of messages for 50 years, and things aren't getting better. So maybe we need to make it more obvious. I don't know.
That's not better.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know if beating it or shoving it down people's throats is necessarily going to make things better.
No, it is not. As someone who has been preached at way too many times, or has felt that way in some of the media she has consumed over the years. Yeah, no. You start preaching at me, I walk out the door.
Yeah.
But that's me. I don't know. Maybe some people get a kick out of it.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I don't necessarily feel like I was being preached to. I wasn't offended by it. I was like,
well, it's not a matter of being offended. It's a matter of, I got better things to do with my time.
Yeah. But I mean, I wasn't like, I didn't hate it. I didn't necessarily enjoy it either. I'm just I'm Switzerland. I'm neutral.
That's fine.
Yeah. I don't want to be turned into plastic and then explode into tiny little bits either. But I think hopefully we're centuries away from the plastic getting to that point.
Well, if the nesting consciousness ever lands on our doorstep, I guess we'll find out.
Yep. And next was Can You Hear Me?
Yeah.
Which has the Doctor and the fam splitting up at least a little bit, and we bounce around from ancient Syria to Sheffield, modern day. Yaz goes and visits her sister. Ryan goes and visits a friend of his. Graham goes and visits some friends of his, play cards and that sort of thing. So, but people are getting infected or taken over and being forced to kind of live their worst nightmare or the worst memory, or so, I think it depends on the person. It's interesting. It gives us some more backstory and some more character development for the fam. We find out that Ryan has feels like he's kind of left his friends behind because he's been often traveling with the Doctor, and he feels some guilt about that. And then Graham, I guess, like his friends are also kind of like his support group for, because he had cancer in the past and he's in remission now. But his worst nightmare is the idea that the cancer will come back and there's nothing he can do about it. And also, I think some survivors' guilt because of Grace. We get to see Grace again for at least a little bit, which that was kind of cool. Mm-hmm. Or at least a nightmare version of Grace, for Graham at least. She's like, "Why didn't you save me?" And he's like, "I did what I could." But then we find out Yaz, her worst nightmare is actually her reliving like a really low point in her life. It seems back when she was in school, apparently she was bullied. And I think you can interpret what exactly she was doing sitting on the side of the road there when that police officer comes and finds her, whether she's running away or she just needs to get away and get some air and get far away from her family so that, they'll leave her alone or bullies can't find her or whatever. I've seen everywhere from people thinking she was running away to people thinking that maybe Yaz was going to commit suicide. They don't spell it out because I think they want to leave that for people to interpret how they will. But either way, Yaz was kind of at a low point, and this officer comes and finds her and eventually convinces her she needs to go back home, give it like a year, and if she feels any different, if she feels any better, she owes the cop 50 pence, something like that. And then if she doesn't feel any better, then she owes the cop like 50 pounds. So I like that character development that we got some more backstory for Yaz, especially because I know some people feel like Yaz has just been kind of like left behind compared to Ryan and Graham. So which I can kind of see that. So, but I like that's kind of like our side plot there. But then the main plot is this being Zelen that is the one making all these people have these nightmares on behalf of this other entity. And it turns out they're both immortals. And they name drop the Eternals, the Guardians, and the Celestial Toymakers. So I loved that. I loved it. Called back to the classic Who. So I was like, ooh. So kind of another standalone episode. Not really anything that really fits into the overall arc of the season. You know, the doctor's like, oh, something's coming for me, the lone Cyberman and all that. I know that there was also some controversy with the ending, the conversation between Graham and the doctor. How do you guys feel about that? Do you think that the way the doctor responded was out of character, in character? Both? Neither?
I mean, she's got a lot on her plate going on, and she was focused on the task at hand and probably really not paying all that much attention to what Graham was saying. And it was like, doctor, hello.
Mm-hmm. See, I was under the impression that she was listening and she had heard everything he said. She just had absolutely no idea how to respond. What was the proper way to respond? Which, in that kind of situation, when somebody comes to you with a heavy subject, whether it's, financial issues or health issues or family issues, in this case, Graham is coming to the doctor saying that, he's really concerned that the cancer could come back one of these days. And some people, whether you're human or not, those are very complicated and mixed emotions that usually come with heavy subjects like that. And not everybody is well equipped to handle that and know what to do, especially if it's seemingly coming out of nowhere. Where you don't have time to necessarily prepare yourself for.
True. And I'm sure, too, she probably, didn't want to respond because she probably didn't want what was probably come out of her mouth be taken the wrong way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just because of how that relationship with them is, because I could see if she said something that could have been taken the wrong way, Graham would have been, I think, see ya, long gone, who needs you?
Yeah. Because the doctor has been known to say the wrong thing. Or say something very inappropriate. I mean, Clara had to make the 12th Doctor note cards.
Yes.
So some of these people are like, oh, it's, it's like, how could the doctor not say anything, this is so unlike the doctor to react the way she did. I'm like, actually, I think that's exactly how she would react so that she doesn't do what her previous incarnations have done and stuck her foot in their mouth.
Right.
She doesn't have Clara's note cards anymore, so.
Ooh, she doesn't.
I mean, she was honest about it, though. That was the thing, though. It's like she didn't know what to say, and that's what she told Graham. She's like, I honestly do not know what the correct thing is to say to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think if I were in Graham's shoes, I would appreciate that. It's like, okay, you heard me. You're still processing. That's okay. As long as I know that I have said what I said.
Yeah. It's like she listened. She just did not know how to respond.
Yeah, so it's better than making like the false promises or saying something that can sound like condescending, maybe.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Or not genuine.
Yeah.
Exactly. You could say like
insincere.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, a little controversy with the Doctor Who episode, but I think it's overblown in my humble opinion. But that's just
I haven't seen anything about that. But then again, like I've kind of stopped looking at, except for like a few people. I stopped like seeing what other people thought of episodes because it gets like this, like there's so much controversy.
I was going to say I haven't heard anyone be upset about it. I'm not saying that there isn't, but if there's controversy, I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Yeah. You don't necessarily go looking for comments to see what people are saying like I do. I'm a glutton for punishment, apparently.
Maybe. You said it, not me.
Yeah, I know. It's true. So then we get to our last, I guess, kind of standalone, although this actually ends up working kind of like as a backdoor episode into the 2-part finale.
Like, I thought who said, I think it was one of the boys said something about, like, it was kind of like Utopia.
Yeah.
In the
trilogy,
third season.
Yeah.
It sort of connects, but it's not, you don't necessarily have to, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
You don't necessarily have to watch it, but it would be good.
Yeah.
To kind of catch at least the last
few minutes.
One.
Like the last.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the time marker is, but at the point where we learned about the Siberium is really when you need to know what's going on for the finale.
The shot goes up.
Yeah. Doctor Who, why do you give us words that are hard to pronounce? The Haunting of Villa
Diodati?
Yeah, sure.
That's as close as Italian as I can get. I'm going with my Latin-based Spanish pronunciation there.
Yeah. But this is a pseudo-historical, because this is based on an event that supposedly actually happened in 1816, where Mary Shelley, along with her husband and Lord Byron, got together, and during the course of their discussions while they're together at this villa, Mary Shelley gets the germ of the idea for Frankenstein, the Frankenstein story. So the Doctor and Fam, which this time the Fam actually gets to wear a period appropriate attire. Usually doesn't happen. Go to hang out with these, literary greats, and think they've stumbled across possibly real ghosts, but it turns out that it's not a ghost. It is the lone Cyberman. And we learn about the Cyberium, which is the Cybermen equivalent of the Matrix, where it contains all the knowledge and history of the Cybermen. It kind of looks like mercury floating in water, which is probably how they did that effect, actually. If you've ever taken mercury and suspended it in water, and the silver, it just kind of floats around. It's really cool. It looks like something out of Terminator, actually.
Yeah.
A little bit.
The T-2000 is making its way.
Yeah. So the Doctor has to this lone Cyberman who he's not completely converted, so he kind of looks like Danny did without the nuts and bolts sticking out of his skin like Danny did, which kind of creeps me out. But so he's not completely converted, but he still considers himself one of the Cybermen, and is all for everything that the Cybermen are for, eliminating all organic material. upgrading everybody or converting everybody. But once the Cyberium, because apparently it had been thrown back in time so that the Cybermen couldn't get their hands on it, and Mary Shelley's husband found it, and this lone Cyberman is hunting him, and the Doctor ends up getting it, but eventually ends up giving it to the Cyberman, which is exactly what Captain Jack told the fam to tell the Doctor not to do. Because, of course, that's exactly what the Doctor's going to do. Someone tells her not to do something. What is she going to do?
She's going to go ahead and do it.
Yeah, exactly. So But supposedly the Cyberium will allow the Cybermen to have all this knowledge and utterly destroy the human race, which feeds us into the first half of the season finale, Ascension of the Cybermen.
Am I the only one who thinks that somebody on the Doctor Who writing team was also a Next Gen fan? I was getting some Borg-like vibes in some of the areas of the Cybermen stuff. I'm just like, when are we going to get the Resistance's futile line?
Yeah. Possibly. We definitely see a new Cybermen. So I believe the look of the Cybermen have been tweaked a little since we last saw them. Since the Dr. Falls, I think.
I remember reading somewhere what they crossed it with, but for the life of me, I can't remember which ones they crossed to get this version. But man, did they look creepy cool?
Yeah,
or scary cool.
They seem kind of like, I don't want to say muscular because they don't have muscles, but they almost seem like if they had muscles, they would be more muscular.
Yes.
Yeah, basically they're ripped.
Yes. Yeah, these Cybermen are ripped. And then we have flying Cybermen, like drone-like heads.
Yeah. I mean, they make the little cyber mats from the lodge, or the visitor, look tame.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because it's like with the Daleks, the minute they learn how to fly.
Yes, you're done for.
Yeah. It's like, this is a whole other mess of you don't want to have to deal with.
Yeah, a whole big can of no bueno.
Yes, exactly. So this first half is meeting some of the last remaining people in the universe, apparently, because the Cybermen have laid waste to everyone everywhere. The Doctor ends up with Ryan, while Yaz and Graham end up with some of these survivors on a cyber ship, and they make it to the edge of the galaxy that they're in, where it's supposed to be at the moment still a pocket where the Cybermen have not gotten to, so it's kind of a refuge. There's this one guy left, and apparently there's this barrier, and people can go through the barrier, and he doesn't know actually where it goes. He just knows that he's just there to make sure people go through it. Nobody ever comes back. Turns out that barrier goes to Gallifrey, and then we get the Return of the Master.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that leads us into the Timeless Children, where everything just turns on its head.
Yeah, what we thought we knew. Oh boy.
What we thought we knew, but when you start researching and reminding yourself of things that have happened and who previously, you realize, oh, maybe this isn't as far-fetched as we thought. So
and you do a head tilt and do a little more research and do another head tilt the opposite way and
exactly, because since Fugitive, so since the Fugitive, the Judoon, when we were introduced to Ruth's doctor, a lot of people have been like, Chibnall's just taking Cannon and thrown out of the window. What's he doing? This is crap. How can you're if she's pre-Hartnell's doctor, it's like that just throws the counting, the late, who we think each of the doctors are as far as their order is completely screwed up. Some people are like, well, there's a possibility there was a generation in between 2 and 3 that may or may not have happened depending on how you want to look at things. So people have just been racking their brains trying to make this unknown version of the Doctor fit. And Chibnall said right after the Judoon episode aired, because my first thought was maybe it's an alternate timeline or an alternate universe type thing. Maybe she's from like we've got Pete's World. Maybe there's another, alternate universe that maybe this Doctor came from. And Chibnall's like, no, she is the Doctor. This Ruth, she is the Doctor. It's not an alternate timeline or anything like that. She is the Doctor. So I was like, okay, how do we make this work? So then in universe, in this episode, the Doctor gets forced into the Matrix by the Master. Hello, Matrix. Been a long time. Nice callback. Classic Who.
Yep.
And the Master tells the Doctor what he found in the Matrix that caused him to go crazier than, I don't want to say God crazy because he's already crazier than normal, and kill everybody on Gallifrey, completely destroy Gallifrey, which we learned in Spyfall. That what we thought is the basis of the history of the Time Lords is so much more. So apparently Gallifrey was originally inhabited by yes, sure. We'll go with that. We'll go with that pronunciation. Shobogans, I guess. And there was this native Shobogan who Tectuin.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, Tectuin, Tectuine.
Yeah, something like that. So Sasha Dewan does these pronunciations so much better than we do. So yeah, we'll go with Tectuin. She's an explorer. She goes out driving in her little spaceship, discovering what's out there, eventually ends up at the edge of a galaxy or something where there's this kind of gateway rip in the universe that potentially leads to another universe, and there she finds a child who is seemingly abandoned. So she decides to abandon this little girl and goes back to Gallifrey and raises the girl as her own kid. Everything is fine. One day the kid is playing with another friend. There's an accident. She falls off a cliff. Tectuin thinks that her daughter has died. The kid regenerates. Being the scientist explorer that Tectuin is, she becomes obsessed with figuring out how the kid is able to do this, going through several more regenerations in the process, eventually is able to harness the genetic code that allows the child to regenerate, injects it in herself, rewriting her DNA, gives her the ability to regenerate, and passes that along to the other Shobogans who with this newfound ability, and they're changing their genetics, the society is able to expand. They built the capital. They relabeled themselves Time Lords when they also discover the ability to time travel, and that's it. Mm-hmm. But what really sends the Master overboard is because the doctor, after learning all this, she's like, well, what happened to the child? Because that's what the doctor does. Doctor's always concerned with the young and innocent. And I don't think it should be any surprise, really. We could probably all see where this was going. We just don't know the backstory of what the title, The Timeless Child, meant. But the doctor is the Timeless Child.
Well, see, at first I kind of thought, okay, Master, are you doing the mic drop, and are you the Timeless Child? And then I'm like, oh, no, of course, it's going to be the doctor, because I thought, at first I'm thinking, oh, the doctor, but I'm like, shouldn't I go there? Would he make it that obvious? I'm thinking, maybe it's the Master. Nope, it was the doctor.
Yeah. So, of course, the doctor's like, no, I remember being a kid and playing with you and going to the academy and graduating and stealing that TARDIS with Susan and taking off. How does this work?
and the Master's like, you don't know how many times, you've regenerated before this.
Yeah.
Something might be wonky in your memory banks.
Yes. Yeah. And other than this reference to this thing called the Division.
Mm-hmm. Is that a precursor to the Celestial Time Agency or Jack's time
it's like
thing that he was a part of?
Yeah. It's like we don't know, what this organization, it's supposedly a secret organization within the Time Lords, because the Time Lords as a whole, in theory, have always had this mantra of no interference. We can time travel, but do not change time itself. Time cannot be rewritten. Apparently, this group, the Division, thinks otherwise, that it's a bit more gray. And the doctor, presumably before they took the title of the doctor, was part of this organization, and at some point had their memory completely wiped. And what little memory that we saw that this version of the doctor would have kind of flash in her brain had instead of it being memories of herself, she had changed it to the story of this Irish policeman.
Yes.
Which I did. That's not where I thought that was going. I thought maybe the Irish policeman was going to eventually become this lone Cyberman.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
And when we're getting the kind of backstory of this policeman, the supposed story of this policeman, how he gets founded as a baby, and which is what the Timeless Child is, gets found. There's an accident, falls off a cliff, thinks he dies. He's actually okay. He doesn't regenerate, but he's okay, which made me think maybe he was enhanced by the Cybermen at that point when he becomes a policeman. But unrelated to the story itself, like at the point where he's the age where he decides to go and join the police force, am I absolutely crazy, or does the guy playing Brendan, the policeman, at that point in his life not look like a young Peter Capaldi?
Yeah, there was similarity. Yep.
Yeah. Like, this guy kind of looks like Peter Capaldi.
So basically, if you're familiar with Divergent, that's what this is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in a way. But I'm just like, okay.
And then too, we've got the Master trying to make a side room deal with the Cybermen.
Of course.
As the Master does.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy, this is gonna come back and bite you, buddy. Even though you don't know it yet.
Yeah.
You should want to be doing this.
You think you're alone by now?
I mean, the last thing we would need is an upgraded Cybermaster.
Yes.
Let that sink for a moment.
Yeah. That's just.
It's like, I know, Master, you've worn some weird disguises and costumes in the past, but this is one you can't come back from.
Yeah.
In theory.
In theory, yes.
In theory. But yeah, just it's one thing when the Cybermen just take people and convert them. I don't know why, but the idea of the Cybermen coming to Gallifrey and taking all of the dead bodies and turning them into Cyber, I don't know why that just creeps me out more.
They're advanced zombies.
To boots, that just no.
Yeah.
Usually,
I mean, this isn't the first time that we've seen Cybermen take dead bodies. Hello, that's what Missy did in Dark Water, but still.
It's just.
I think, well, I don't know, because when Missy did it, it was creepy enough. I think it's because when we've seen the Cybermen convert people, it's like living people, but I'm like, that's not better. Because, I'm thinking of the scenes in the David Tennant one when they first came back, Age of Steel.
Oh, yes.
And they have them all lined up outside the factory, and it's this big processing plant, and ew. But I'm like, oh, it's not, what I would rather nobody be converted, but living people or dead people, what's worse? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and we still have we still have no idea how the Master managed to kill everybody and leave bodies behind for the Cybermen to use in the first place.
Right.
That may be answered down the line, probably.
Yeah. I mean, we got the death particle, and then I'm just kind of like, maybe he tweaked a reality bomb of some sort. I don't know, because when I heard that death particle, I was like, this kind of reminds me of the death particle that they had to try, or not, the reality bomb that they had to try to get away from Davros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In the whole end of time thing.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, we all know that the Master is just absolutely bonkers and megalomaniac to the nth degree. So it's like I'm sure whatever he came up with was just bleh. Just awful.
Yeah.
Whatever it was. And maybe we don't actually need to know what exactly he did. Just we know he's capable of it. It's like the actual tools that he used, do we really need to know, or do we just really need to know that he did it?
Yeah, I don't know if I want to go into detail.
Yeah.
Yeah, some things are best left.
That tissue decompression thing was bad enough as it was.
Yeah. But we do get this nice interaction when the Doctor is essentially trapped in the Matrix, and she sees a vision of the Ruth version of the Doctor, and they have this short conversation, and then Ruth disappears, and the Doctor does what the Doctor does best and talks to herself. And she even says that at one point. She's like, "Oh, talking to myself, that's a good sign."
I remember thinking, only the Doctor would that be a good sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, this happens quite a bit. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But she ends up figuring out that she can get out of the Matrix if she overloads it by, essentially filling it with the memories that she knows she has in her head. And we get this great sequence of images from Jodie's era of the Doctor, all the way back to Hartnell's Doctor. I mean, we see companions and creatures and all the incarnations going all the way back, and this like kind of creepy remix version of the Doctor Who theme. The Doctor is like, this is the Matrix. I've denied the reality of the Matrix before. Actually, the Doctor's done it several times. Encountered the Matrix and been like, in the words of Adam Savage, I reject your reality and substitute my own. Because the Doctor did that in The Deadly Assassin.
I deny this reality. The reality is a computation matrix.
And then in Trial of the Time Lord and The Ultimate Foe, when the Doctor goes to try and confront the Valeyard, and it seems like the Doctor disappears into quicksand and reappears completely fine. Like, this is the Matrix. It's not real.
Hang on! Where are you? Oh no. Don't give in! I'm coming! Doctor? What a way to go. All in all, he wasn't a bad old codger. Honest, of course. Still, nobody's perfect.
And that's the clue. Nobody is. Not even the Valeyard.
Oh, great cosmic protector of grafters and dissemblers, save me! Save me! A voice from the grave!
No, a grave voice. Bad joke. But everything round here is a bad joke.
No mud. But I saw your ankle armor. I don't get it.
Oh, do concentrate, Glitz. How often must I tell you? We're not dealing with reality.
Why waste your breath on that simple-minded oaf? You cannot speak as though reality is a one-dimensional concept.
So I like that. I'm like, ooh, we're getting all sorts of callbacks to my Doctor. That makes me very happy.
You should see, dear Chris Chibnall, please send your address so Rachel can send you a fruit basket.
Yes, really. It's like, I'm always excited when they make callbacks, especially to Classic Who, but my Doctor does not get enough love. So, yeah, nice little callback to my Doctor makes me very, very happy. But more importantly, and circling back around to why I said at the beginning of this is if you do your research and look at what has been done in Doctor Who before, just because there's a lot. We'll admit that. There's 50 plus years of TV and Big Finish and books and blah, blah, blah to reference. So you can't remember everything as much as with I'm not the Matrix. But in that sequence of the Doctor going through her memories, specifically, when we get to the fourth Doctor, we get a clip from the brain of Morbius, which is how, more than likely, how Ruth's Doctor, the Timeless Child, previous incarnations of the Doctor fit into canon. So, if you've not seen the brain of Morbius recently, I'll refresh your memory. In the brain of Morbius, during the plot, the Doctor confronts Morbius to a mind-bending contest where they hook themselves up to this apparatus and see whose mind essentially is stronger. And Morbius we see as, the brain in the jar, essentially, is what he is. But then we see what Morbius supposedly looked like before he became a brain in the jar. And then the Doctor does something similar, goes through his from the fourth Doctor, through his previous incarnations. So we see 3, 2, and 1. Then we see 8 other faces that are pre-Hartnell. Of course, not long after the Brain of Morbius airs, is we get the in-universe mention that Time Lords are only supposed to have 12 regenerations. But that was there being previous incarnations pre-Hartnell's Doctor was something they were going to explore further in the series back then. But then they kind of wrote themselves into a corner with the whole 12 regeneration thing. And they're like, we'll come back to this later. 44 years later, I think we finally come back to this.
God, Morbius.
So, and then there's the idea that maybe the Doctor on a subconscious level was aware that they had a life pre what we've seen in the series, because apparently there's a 5th Doctor novel called Cold Fusion, where the 5th Doctor is remembering and recounting the mind-bending battle with Morbius. And it is revealed in that novel that after Morbius says, back to your beginning, the 4th Doctor is having the mind-bending contest, thinks in his head, you can't, not that far, I won't let you. Presumably that, at least on possibly a subconscious level, that the Doctor has always been aware that there is a life as the timeless child, because whatever the Time Lords did to try and wipe obviously was not 100% successful, because also, Jodie's Doctor was having these flashes of this Irish policeman, which was kind of like this fairy tale kind of, I can't handle the reality of what I'm remembering, so I'm giving it a different coding. So it's some book I may have read as a kid or something. So does that answer all of our questions? No, but it does give us an opening on how this could be canon and how it was possibly established all the way back in the 4th Doctor's run. So go watch Brain of Morbius to refresh yourself with that. So that being said, we have questions still.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So, what kind of questions do you guys have? Even if we can't come up with answers, it helps to put the questions out there. Maybe someone has an idea. Maybe Chris Chibnall will hear this. I don't know. So,
yeah. Is this some grand scheme, and the Master is just feeding the Doctor a line of, BS?
Horse manure?
Yeah, horse manure.
Yeah.
Or is there something else going on, and this is a power play by Rassilon? I don't know. I mean, who's telling the truth?
I'm almost inclined to think that the Master is actually telling the truth.
For once.
For once. I mean, he is capable.
That's true.
Every once in a while, he is capable of telling the truth. So, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I read comments. But I think the point that somebody made that I think I agree with, just based on what we know, what's been established as far as the history of the Time Lords, is, why did they keep the secret? That's the big thing that people want to know. It's like, why did the Time Lords go through this whole dog and pony show of wiping the Doctor's memories and doing, all of this stuff, because of this is the true origin of Time Lord society. And someone's comment that I think I agree the most with is the Time Lords probably tried to keep this a secret to make themselves seem high and mighty, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
Because essentially they established their society on stealing genetic material from a child that wasn't even one of theirs.
Yep.
And using it to establish themselves as this race that they have always purported as being superior in many ways, genetically, intellectually, all of these things. And if people were to find out that everything that the Time Lords are came from them, one of their people doing scientific experiments on a child that came from this unknown universe that they know nothing about, that it would take them down several pegs.
Right. And this would give, what's her name? Vindication for getting tossed out of the Time Lords.
Yes.
Oh.
The Ronnie?
The Ronnie, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
With her,
because she was a scientist. She loved to do experiments, and the Time Lords didn't like her doing that.
Yep.
So yeah, just because it's been well established that the Time Lords, even with their no interference policy, that they've always seen themselves as better than everyone else in the entire universe. And therefore the idea that, we're just, we have the ability to regenerate just because we're better genetically, and we have the ability to we have this great society that was established by Rassilon and Omega, and
there is also, because and I think this is in some of the novels, which I have not gotten around to reading, so bear that in mind, is that the whole time travel thing, there's a theory that one of the Time Lords that was helping Rassilon and Omega, I can never say it the way the British say it, those guys were working on, the whole time travel thing. That was actually an incarnation of the Doctor somewhere along the lines. Now that could be considered, kind of apocryphal, but also the Doctor, or the Time Lords, they go on and on about no interference, but that's more of a guideline than an actual rule, especially since they send the Doctor to do all their dirty work for them anyway.
Yeah. And how does Valeyard play into all this too? Excuse me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Time Lords have never been seen as this squeaky clean entity anyway.
Well, not by us.
Not by us, no. And probably not by the rest of the universe. I mean, this might be more them, beating their chest, patting their ego, whatever metaphor you want to, whatever metaphor you want to use. And it's just kind of like, well, why? I'm like, why does this? I don't know. It's like, why are you guys so afraid of being found out that, oh, wait, yeah, we actually did take technology and abilities and things from other people? It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of how the world works in real life. I'm not talking about, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's an ego thing.
It is definitely an ego thing, and the Time Lords, they have the biggest egos of them all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all it really. I mean, we're looking at from the point of human beings who actually have, a conscience and human decency, and realize that acting like you're better than other people doesn't really get you anywhere.
No.
This is true. This is true.
We're not a bunch of pompous egotists who apparently decide that the height of fashion is big ass collars.
Someone ought to give the memo to Twitter.
Yeah. The bigger, and what's that old saying? The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yes. Well, in this case, they fell literally to nothing thanks to the master. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you could have just been honest.
Yeah.
You could have just said, yes, this is part of our history.
Does this justify the master laying waste to all of Gallifrey? No.
No.
Not at all. But at the same time, it's like,
I wonder if along the way, like a Time Lord was like, yeah, this is part of our history. No, we don't want people to really make a big deal out of it. It's like, well, why don't you just release the information? And yeah, there'll be some fallout, but the fact that you tried to hide it is not a good thing.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But I mean, we've seen civilizations do similar things throughout real history, where down the line someone will uncover something and they'll find out that some leader or something that has always been revered as this great person in history. They're like, yeah, they weren't as great as you thought they were. Like, they actually did all these terrible things.
A lot of that does come down to, sometimes it's their followers who come after, like, yes, so and so was basically a god, and then but maybe that person in their life never really claimed to be so. It's just their adherents were like, oh, it was just the greatest thing ever. But I don't know.
But in this case, I think the Time Lords fed into their own hype.
Oh well, yes.
And that's where it ultimately comes down to. But I mean, I can kind of see some parallels to news stories that have come out in modern history, where they're like, so and so thought to be this great politician or scientist or something. They're like, actually, like, they were a drunk and they beat their wife and they stole all of someone else's work. So it's like, they're not as great as you thought they were. That's probably, the Time Lords are probably like, well, we've hyped ourselves up. Heaven forbid someone find out that the hype is not real. We can't have that. And this is what the fallout is someone does find out. It just happens to be probably one of the worst people to find out.
Yeah.
The one Time Lord who is off his rocker and always has his hand on the trigger switch of some device. He's like the last person you would want to have to find this out, because he's going to use it, and he did. To the detriment of,
and if I'm the doctor, after saving all my people from the Time War, and in like the biggest second chance of my life, all my lives, and then I find out that my nemesis just totally destroyed all my efforts, I'd be a little upset.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Well, we don't know, if anybody managed to escape. That's a thing. So it's like, we thought that the Time Lords were all dead before. I mean, obviously there had to been some dead for the Cybermen to take the bodies and convert them, but we don't know that absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
There were TARDISes available, so
maybe that will be the 60th anniversary.
Yeah, maybe. You got 3 years to figure this out, Chibnall.
Yep. There you go.
So, but yeah, they obviously, this is something that's going to be continued to be explored because they did leave us on a freaking cliffhanger. Which, when's the last time that Doctor Who left us on a cliffhanger in a season finale?
It's been a while.
Have they ever?
Well, actually, the I would say the name of the Doctor, but that was setting up for the 50th anniversary, and that wasn't that far off. We had we knew that was coming.
Yeah, it was like May to November. It's like,
yeah, that's really the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, you're right. Like, oh no, what happened? We have to wait a year, months and months.
Yeah, so the thing is, we could presume that we're going to have some sort of holiday season special, more than likely, again, maybe. Or maybe it'll come back on January 1st again. I don't know. That's the thing, is that it's like, they keep dangling these treats in front of us and be like, here you go, here's a little something, and that's all you get.
Yeah.
And it's not even like they left us on a cliffhanger that has really anything to do with it. Well, I mean, considering who the Judoon were looking for the Doctor, and that one gal who was with them was also Gallifreyan, and so the Time Lords may or may not have been involved with the Judoon going after the Doctor in the first place. Although if all the Time Lords are dead, then why are the Judoon still pursuing the Doctor? So we still have like that. So it's like they didn't directly leave us on a cliffhanger that directly is tied to the Timeless Child thing. It's the fam is back on modern Earth where they belong with a couple extra passengers. The Doctor takes another TARDIS, lands it near her TARDIS, gets in her TARDIS, Judoon, arrest her and throw her in jail.
Right.
And that's where we're at.
And maybe Jack made a deal with the Judoon, maybe to protect her because he knows something else is down the line and he's trying to save her from something. I don't know. I'm just it's a theory. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Like, I was watching the episode yesterday and I'm like, okay, well, this is the thing. Okay. And then we get to the end and there's like so many minutes left. And, it's like Ryan, Graham, Yaz, back on Earth. Sweet. That TARDIS that they took, the chameleon circuit works, turned into a house.
Yep.
Okay. But then, like, they're all like, oh, we're on Earth, so the Doctor saved us. And Yaz is like, but what about her? Because the Doctor was going to use this bomb, use it to ignite this particle, and use it to destroy all of the Cybermen before they're able to get off Gallifrey. And she can't do it, even with all the Masters taunting. But then that one guy who was in the safe harbor area comes in to take her place and set the bomb off, because he was part of the group that sent the Siberian back in time in the first place to hide it and failed. So he's like, oh, I can do this as my pittance for failing.
I was expecting him to reveal himself as a Gallifreyan.
I was thinking the same thing. Is this like, okay, is this the regeneration of the woman that found the Doctor? She regenerated into a male form and then became human. And lost the Time Lord DNA.
Yeah. Don't know. That's another one of those questions. Or he just could have been a guy that was just trying to do the right thing. And felt like this was his chance to tried to set things right. So, and presumably, it works and destroys all the Cybermen. Of course, the Master's there too, but odds are the Master will figure out a way out of it, and we'll see the Master return. Maybe Sasha Dewan will be, it'll still be that incarnation. Maybe it'll be a different incarnation. To be determined, but the Master always comes back. And the Cybermen will come back eventually. It won't necessarily be these Cybermen, but we'll get some version of the Cybermen at some point. They always come back too. So, I thought maybe too, because of the public history that the Time Lords, like to share with Rassilon and Omega and all that I thought maybe that because we see Tecteun regenerate into a man, I wonder if maybe one of Tecteun, at some point Tecteun changed her name and became Rassilon.
I wouldn't be surprised. Because
might be.
Yeah, because don't they say like it was Rassilon that discovered? I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched anything with Rassilon.
He discovered time travel. He's basically the founder of Time Lord Society.
Mm-hmm. So that would make sense that before, the Tecteun would maybe change her name when she regenerates for the first time and be like, call me Rassilon. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a valid theory. I like it, actually.
Yeah.
Seems legit.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But it's like the implications short term, long term. It's like, now that we know that the Doctor's got this whole lives presumably before taking on the name of the Doctor and becoming the character that we know and love. So the Gallifreyan being, I guess, that's this timeless child, became part of this division, did whatever things that the division asked, got to a point where they either got found out or something. They wiped their memory, forced them to regenerate probably back into a child, because I guess that's something that can happen. And essentially give the Doctor a do-over, regenerate into a child with no memory, and therefore the memories start with being a child on Gallifrey, playing with the Master, going to the academy, having a family, taking off with Susan, and seeing what we know as the Doctor and taking up the name of the Doctor. But I wonder maybe if because the fact that the I don't know what name to use, because I don't want to say the Doctor, because it's not the Doctor.
Right.
Pre Hartnell, but that whoever that person was, if the division was this group that was like, well, the Time Lords say no interference, but some circumstances may dictate that interference is actually a good thing. If that stuck with the Doctor on a subconscious level, and that's why the Doctor has always been one to jump into the middle of things and interfere, essentially, and sometimes change time and change history and do all these things that we know the Doctor does. If just some of that stuck on a subconscious level, though, because Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, when she's talking to Ruth in the Matrix, is essentially it's like, well, everything that I've ever known is not real. It's like that totally changes who I am. It's like, not really, because I think that the personality that we've come to know and love has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you know, she's just got a bunch of memories that she doesn't remember. But at the end of the day, it's all those experiences, whether she remembers them on a conscious level or not, has affected who the Doctor has become as a character. So it'll be interesting to see how they play this out. And, you know, whenever Jodie decides to leave, if maybe instead of her regenerating, that the series decides to go backwards and, you know, cast someone as a pre-Hartnell version of the Doctor, and we get some of that instead.
Oh. That'd be interesting.
Mm-hmm. It would definitely be a change.
Yeah.
You know, we could get, you know, find out more about the Division, find out more about the Time Lords. It's like we could finally go back to Gallifrey properly. Just not these few, you know, bits and bobs, you know, like the 50th and, you know, Hellbent and Heaven Sent and all that. It's like we could go back to the Time Lords proper and get to know a version of the Doctor before they become the Doctor. I think that would be really cool. You know, as something different, but still allows the show to continue. So I know some people are like really mad about this whole thing, but actually I'm kind of excited because like this just opens up a whole other realm of storytelling.
Right. And some of this, you know, with audio on that, some of the stuff that we weren't sure from Classic would be considered canon in New Who. Well, guess what? It's now canon.
It's also the Unbound series, if you haven't ever picked any of those up.
Yep.
So, you know, I've got questions. I expect us to get answers eventually. I mean, I've lived through the Moffat era where it takes 5 seasons to figure out why there's a crack in Amy's wall. So, you know, it may take time to get us the answers that we want and desire, but that just means that there's more Doctor Who in our future. So, I say bring it on.
Yes.
But that's me. What about you guys? I had a lot of notes, so I've been talking a lot. Sorry.
To it. And when I was scrolling through Facebook before we came on, I'm not 100% sure if this rumor is true or not. I'm still waiting for an announcement from Doctor Who proper, but it sounds like Graham and not Yaz, but Graham and his grandson, they will be done. Yeah, will be done by the Christmas special. Yeah, so take that with a grain of salt.
Well, usually companions last about 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Usually, generally, but yeah, that sounds about right, probably.
Watch the space. Any other thoughts?
I don't. If anyone
pointed
else
out most of the stuff I was going to say. I don't know. I don't want to wait. I mean, I'm impatient. Like, I want to know what happens. But I also hope they take. Well, they're gonna take time, but hopefully it's time to make it good. Like,
well, it'll probably be next year, I'm sure.
Yeah. Sure. I think I heard them saying they're not filming until like the fall.
Well, that sounds about right.
Yeah. At the very least, to film the the whatever holiday.
And actually, I don't know if any of you guys did, but I watched it on BBC America, and at the end it said this holiday season coming the resolution of the Daleks. I'm like, wait a second, wasn't that what happened here? Wasn't that the 2 years ago episode? Don't know if they did.
Well, it's just resolution.
Yeah.
That's
right.
That's the thing. So, I mean, we're so far away from, we're so far away from the holidays that.
Yeah, I'm like, we just had them.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they obviously they filmed all this last year so that we could get it early this year. So it's not like Chibnall did not know where this was going to end in his, he's probably mapped it out at the very least, how he expects this to go. But at the same time, it's like, you get to the end of the season and there's contract negotiations and sometimes people decide to leave and that sort of thing. So once he knows who is staying, then he can write the stories accordingly. And, we may or may not get John Barrowman back again next season. Hopefully. Hopefully it's not another 10 years. John, God love him. He's aging well, but you can only go so long before Jack becomes the face of Bo.
True.
With a head in a jar. So
well, maybe they'll get to that point or somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
We're like, Jack, you're getting older. Well, yes.
I mean, if you believe that Jack actually does literally become the face of Bo, that giant head in a jar, then Jack is immortal, but he does age. He's just aging very, very slowly.
Yes.
Which John Barrowman is in real life, actually. He does not necessarily look like it's been 10 years since he's been in Doctor Who. So.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
My first thought at the end of last night's episode, I was like, ooh, is Jack gonna help the Doctor escape the prison?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's just me wanting Jack to come back. Because I was hoping he would show up some point during the season, so the Doctor and they can reunite. And it didn't happen, but we can always hope that happens soon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Doctor's going to need some help to get out of that prison, because that must be like Jodun prison detention facility that doesn't look like Storm Cage, where you can just waltz out and waltz back in
just
really
all
the time.
Back in, you can turn off the alarms.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm breaking in, not breaking out. I'll have my dinner at the usual time. Thank you.
Right. Oh, goodness. Well,
maybe we need River to come back to help the Doctor break out of jail.
Yeah.
Ooh,
what's Alex up to?
There's your other little reunion.
Like, the Doctor's in jail. Who knows about breaking out of jails other than River Song? So,
can you imagine Jodie's Doctor, Jack, and River all together?
Oh, that would be something to see.
That's fan fiction fodder for generations.
If anybody wants to write that or has written it,
I'm
sure they probably have.
I don't know if it's fit for family consumption.
Yeah,
yeah,
not.
Give us the family-friendly consumption ones, please, and thank you.
Yeah, family-friendly and Jack Harkness do not go in the same sentence.
Not in large quantities. No. But anyway, well, if
of course, neither is John Barrowman. So
Yeah.
Some of those stories they pulled from behind the scenes, definitely not.
Well,
And Alex is not a whole lot better, actually. So
True.
And on that note,
they do share a birthday, so they're the same. They're the same sign if you're into that thing. So that probably explains a lot.
Well, on that note, before we go further down this rabbit hole, if any of our listeners want to chime in with their thoughts on the most recent season of Doctor Who, or anything else we've discussed, you can email us at pipishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also go to our website and leave us comments there, or go to go follow the links there to our social media stuff, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is kind of our big ones. You can also listen to the podcast on YouTube. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, anywhere fine podcasts are found. You can find us there as well. You can also support the show by visiting our Patreon or visiting our Amazon store. Again, links to that on our website, and also our merchandise shop. You can get t-shirts and tote bags and other things with our wonderful logo on it, and that helps support the show immensely. So thank you all for your support, for your feedback, for anything you do to let us know you're out there. And Charlotte is snorting, and that means she says, yes, thank you too. That also means she's hungry.
Yep.
But it's in the accent, the way she does it. Do you know which one is which?
And also your reminder, I meant to mention this when we were doing the news, but also your reminder that there's still time to put in your vote for the Rondo Awards for friend of the show, Russell McGee's audio adaptation of Frankenstein, actually. How appropriate is that?
Yep.
No. Are you special rice? Get a butter rice. That's right. Step right up. Get away from that, you filthy devil! Get back! Get take that! Yes! Be gone! Devil! Away! Yes! Take that!
William. And how about this one?
Friend?
Excellent, William. You may yet prove to your brother that he isn't the only scholar in this family. Which might even bring him back to us.
I do hope so. He's been gone a very long time.
I know, William. I know.
Friend.
So, and you can find the information for that on the website as well. So, just want to put that out there. Coo. All right. Well, with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany and Bethlehem saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Is it just me, or when the Master shrunk the lone Cyberman down, that he looked like a little figure that you'd use in like one of those tabletop war games?
I was thinking the exact same thing.
I was thinking,
like, I'm pretty sure I've seen a figure like that at Gen Con.
Yeah.
I was thinking that, and also like it reminded me of like 90s toys.
And as soon as he sat him down, it's like, that better not fall on the floor, because if somebody steps on it, you're gonna hate life. Yes, it's kaboom.
And you thought stepping on a Lego was bad.
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official Five-ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.